Should get the final go for launch from SpaceX Launch Director Mark
Dragon,
Soltis.
SpaceX. Godspeed. Go for launch.
SpaceX Dragon, go for launch.
SpaceX reports go. Crew reports go. 30 seconds until liftoff.
T-minus 15. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. Engines full power. And liftoff. Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
Vehicle is pitching downrange. Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
We're now at T plus 35 seconds into the 5th rotational crew mission on board Dragon and Falcon 9.
Coming up in just a few seconds, we'll hear the call out for Stage 1 throttle down.
Stage 1 throttle down.
Falcon 9 engines throttling down to help pass through the period of maximum dynamic pressure.
This period is known as max Q, and once the vehicle, there we just heard that the vehicle is now traveling faster than the speed of sound. Once through max Q, we'll throttle those Merlin engines back up.
Max Q. Stage 1 throttle up. Stage 1 throttle.
Stage 1 Bravo.
Copy 1 Bravo.
That call out for 1 Bravo means we're in the second and final abort mode for the first stage, continuing to get good performance. The crew is already pulling over 2 Gs. And next up is going to be a couple of events in rapid succession. First will be engine chill on the second stage and back engine. And there you heard that call out. And then we'll have MECO, or main engine cutoff, where the 9 engines igniting will cut off in preparation for second stage separation. Then we'll see the single Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage ignite and continue to carry the Crew-5 astronauts to orbit.
Just like we did on first stage, that MVAC chill is intended to help pre-chill the hardware prior to the full flow of that densified liquid oxygen.
Stage 1 throttle down.
At this point in time, those 9 Merlin engines are beginning to throttle down in preparation for MECO, or main engine cutoff.
Standing by for MECO.
And MECO.
Stage 2 Alpha.
Stage separation confirmed. Copy 2 Alpha.
There we should see that second engine begin to ignite now. And obviously confirmed by the loud cheer behind us here at Mission Control Hawthorne.
And we're also in 2 Alpha for the aborts if needed. Again, second stage is lit and continuing to carry the Crew-5 astronauts into orbit.
We're now getting a view of the first stage after that stage separation. The second stage still being illuminated by that single Merlin vacuum engine, and that's on the right-hand side of your screen. First stage on the left-hand side of your screen making its way back to Earth. We will be attempting to land it on our drone ship, which today we are using Just Read the Instructions.
Acquisition signal, Bermuda.
And we did hear that acquisition of the ground station in Bermuda. The first stage is continuing to make its way back to Earth, and the second stage is going to continue.
Trajectory nominal.
Another good call, trajectory nominal.
Dragon copy.
Confirmation there from Commander Nicole Mann. You can also sort of see the Space Coast there in the background of the first stage on the left-hand side of your screen. It also looks like you can actually see the thrust plume created by the first stage as it's now rotating just out of screen.
Second stage is going to continue firing until a little over 8 minutes into the flight, really doing the heavy lifting now, getting the crew into orbit.
Everything continues to look nominal on both first and second stages. As I mentioned before, the first stage will be making a landing on one of our drone ships, which is currently parked a couple hundred miles off the coast of Florida in the Atlantic Ocean. So we can see now that...
Dragon, SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
Good confirmation there that we have good trajectory.
The second stage now traveling over 5,400 miles per hour. Crew is pulling a little more than 1 G right now. That's going to continue to ramp up, peaking just before we get to second stage cutoff here in just a few minutes from now.
First stage will be performing 2 separate burns, a re-entry burn where we reignite 3 of the Merlin the Merlin M1D engines on the first stage. We ignite the center engine and 2 radial engines to help slow it down as it re-enters the Earth's atmosphere. And then the second final burn, and that will be the landing burn on our drone ship.
And the single MVAC engine that you see.
Trajectory nominal.
The single MVAC engine that you see on the right of your screen is continuing to fire. We did hear another call out that trajectory is nominal. Crew heading in the direction that they are supposed to be. This single engine can produce over 220,000 pounds of thrust in the vacuum of space, now over 200 kilometers in altitude. We will start to hit events now in a rapid succession as the first stage continues to make its way back to Earth and the second stage continues its burn. Just a couple minutes left in that burn.
For those of you just joining us, just over 6.5 minutes ago, our 4 Crew-5 astronauts launched from Kennedy Space Center in Florida, and they are now making their way into orbit on the second stage inside Crew Dragon.
Trajectory nominal.
Which we're hearing that the trajectory on that is nominal.
Dragon copy.
They are safe inside Dragon Endurance, whereas the first stage on the left-hand side of your screen is making its way back to Earth. We are coming up to the re-entry burn, which, as I said before, we ignite 3 of the 9 Merlin engines to help slow the booster down as it re-enters the dense part of the Earth's atmosphere. As the entry burn completes, we'll be in the final...
Stage 1, entry burn startup.
So there we heard the call out. You can there see it on your screen that that entry burn has been initiated.
And as that entry burn completes, we'll be in the final different abort phases here shortly, which essentially correspond to areas along the very northeastern seaboard of the U.S.
Stage 1, entry burn shut down.
Great news, that entry burn was shut down, and then those last all the way across the Atlantic off the coast of Scotland for those abort zones.
Everything continues to look nominal for both the first and second stages.
And the crew with the second stage still attached is now traveling over 13,000 miles per hour.
We're about 10 seconds away from SECO 1.
Copy, Shannon.
Shannon,
Stage 1, transonic.
That call out for Shannon, Ireland, indicative of our final abort zone. After this, we'll see second stage shut off, and we'll be listening for confirmation of a good orbit, which tells us the crew and Dragon are exactly where they need to be.
And there we had confirmation that the MVAC...
Stage 1 landing burn.
has shut down simultaneously. The entry.
Dragon SpaceX nominal orbit insertion.
And you heard that call for a good insertion. We will coast for a few minutes.
There we can see the drone ship coming into view as Falcon 9 attempts.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
You can see those landing legs have now deployed. And as you can see on your screen, and you can hear by the clapping and cheering behind me, Falcon 9 has landed on our drone ship just through the instructions, parked off the coast of Florida.
And again, that second stage separation will be coming up just a couple of minutes now. We do coast for a few minutes after second engine cutoff to allow any rates or motion to dampen out and settle. And looks like we're going to get a view of the second stage as it separates here shortly. We did hear that the crew has been successfully inserted into a good orbit. Again, the crew is still attached to the second stage.
We are expecting stage separation to occur in just over a minute from now, about 1 minute and 8 seconds. And that's when when the second stage will separate from the Dragon trunk. The Dragon trunk is the part of hardware where we are able to house the cargo that is able to be exposed to the vacuum of space, as well as the solar panels, which help power Dragon while it is on orbit. Again, that stage separation is now coming up in about 30 seconds. After stage separation, we will have nose cone deployment. Now that Dragon is in the vacuum of space, we will be able to open the nose cone and expose that forward hatch, which is what is utilized to dock autonomously with the International Space Station.
And that nose cone does stay closed for the flight uphill to help protect all of the guidance, navigation, and control sensors. We are standing by for second stage separation. And there is separation.
Dragon separation confirmed. And Dragon, this is your launch director.
Dragon copy is on.
And Dragon, this is your launch director on Dragon. On behalf of the entire launch and recovery team, it was an honor and a pleasure to be a part of this mission with you. And while October 3rd may belong to the Mean Girls, October 5th will forever belong to Crew-5. Godspeed, Endurance. Cheers.
Awesome. Thank you so much to the Falcon team. Woo! That was a smooth ride uphill. You got 3 rookies that are pretty happy to be floating in space right now, and 1 veteran astronaut who's pretty happy to be back as well. Let's see what you got to say, Koichi.
Falcon team, it was a smooth ride, and I see all the 3 happy faces here back in 0G, and I appreciate all the help to give us a smooth ride and training, and thank you so much. JAXA の支援隊の皆さん、非常にスムーズな打ち上げでした。打ち上げご支援していただいた皆さん、応援に駆けつけてくださった皆さん、ありがとうございました。この調子でチームワークを持って頑張ります。Thank you for your support. Anya.
Thank you, Falcon 9 and our fellow agencies, to Roscosmos, NASA, and JAXA, and SpaceX exactly for giving us this opportunity. We're so glad to do it together. And thank you for everybody, for all people who with us. Спасибо большое всем агентствам Роскосмос, НАСА, JAXA и, естественно, SpaceX за предоставленную нам возможность. Мы рады всем экипажам делать то, что мы сейчас делаем. И большое спасибо всем людям, кто сейчас с нами.
Some really nice words there from the Crew-5 crew, as well as...
And Dragon, Falcon 9, see you. Thanks for the words. Had a great ride. Have a good mission. We'll see you later.
A wonderful Mean Girls reference there by Launch Director Mark Soltis, and then we just heard from Chief Engineer Dan Alex. And we just heard our first Quindar tone, indicating the crew is in space.
Dehumidifier activation and service section Draco checkouts. Expected loss of signal, New Hampshire.
Dragon copy.
And Kate, it did look like we were getting our first views of that microgravity indicator.
I did see that as well.
And we're getting views now of the crew on orbit, 3 of them for the first time ever. We saw some cheers, some high fives. Looks like they're feeling great.
Hopefully we can see that zero-G indicator float back into view and hopefully get a better shot of it. I couldn't quite tell what it was, although it kind of looked like it may have been an Einstein doll. But that's just kind of what it looked like from the backside.
I think you're right, Kate. It looked like a baby Einstein to me. So the next milestone that we're looking ahead towards is the nose cone opening.
If you've just joined us, we had a successful liftoff exactly 16 minutes ago of the Crew-5 mission. They had an on-time liftoff from Kennedy Space Center at noon Eastern Time. They had a smooth ride up to orbit. The first stage landed successfully on our drone ship. Just read the instructions, and everything has been looking good so far. We are hoping to get another view on board Dragon once we're able to get that camera back. But so far, everything leading up to this point in time, we got a shot there of the MVAC engine, which is no longer firing. It is coasting with that it's attached to the second stage, which has been separated from Dragon. Yeah, so everything was super smooth this morning, starting all the way back. I think we got here around T-4 hours, and super smooth countdown. Beautiful day from Kennedy Space Center. It looked like a gorgeous view from where Daryl and Bob were sitting. But yeah, we are standing by for the nose cone opening. Now that the Dragon spacecraft is in space, we are able to...
Expected loss of signal, Finland.
We are able to open up that nose cone and expose the forward hatch, which is what is utilized to autonomously dock with the International Space Station, but of course to protect that hardware as well.
Signal.
As well as protect the guidance and navigation control hardware. We keep that nose cone closed during launch preparations and during the ascent portion. So as you can saw there momentarily, Dragon is in space, and the Crew-5 astronauts, all 4 of them, are floating, or they will be able to float soon. We're hoping to get another view of that zero-G indicator once we're able to bring onboard cabin views back to you of the Crew-5 crew. We always like to see what the zero-G gravity indicator is. As you saw earlier in the webcast, Bob actually brought the zero-G indicator that he and Doug used on the Demo 2 mission, a lovely sequin dinosaur, which I also have one at my desk. Bob obviously has the one that went to space. Mine is a replica, but we love seeing these zero-G indicators. It's a really nice way to connect those of us on ground with the folks up in space. So as I said before, we are anticipating nose cone deployment shortly. I'm going to do a quick check-in, and there we can see now the nose cone, the hooks have been released, and we see that nose cone moving with a pretty up-close shot.
We're continuing to see that nose cone open, and
Acquisition of signal, line.
as we've mentioned, this does uncover a number of critical systems for the flight up to the space station that will be required for docking. There are 6 hooks that hold the nose cone in place during the launch and ascent portions. Those have begun to retract, and the nose cone is beginning to swing open. The nose cone is about 2/3 of the way open at this time, so we do expect it to be fully open here shortly.
Shortly after nose cone deployment, the crew will be able to get their visors open, and they'll be given the okay to get out of their suits, and that will allow them to settle in for their ride to the International Space Station.
It is about a 29-hour journey for the crew from launch to docking to the space station, but as you said, they'll be able to get out of their suits, get comfortable, get some rest, and just enjoy being in the microgravity environment of space. Again, we have 3 first-time flyers and 1 veteran on today's flight, but I'm sure it was an exciting moment. No matter how many times you've been to space, I can't imagine that it ever gets old.
I would probably agree with that. I would also imagine that the 3 first-time space goers will have a brief period of acclimation to gravity. I know I certainly would, and I also recognize that my period probably wouldn't be very brief in order to get acclimated to that lack of gravity. But yeah, this is something that the veteran astronauts on board station are, always happy to help really introduce the new space goers to the new environment.
Absolutely, and we did also hear that there was good service section Draco checkouts that took place. We are standing by for that nose cone to be fully deployed, but it should be coming here momentarily.
Dragon, we see a nominal nose cone opening, TCS and forward bulkhead Draco checkouts.
Dragon copies.
Next burn is the upcoming phase burn per your displays.
We see the phase burn in 28 minutes.
Good readback.
So you heard it there, the nose cone has fully been opened successfully. We had some good checkouts on the Draco thrusters, on the service section Draco thrusters rather, and we also had nominal forward bulkhead checkouts.
That's right, and the astronauts should be getting the okay to doff or remove their suits in about 6 or 7 minutes. I would imagine that, as Sandra mentioned before, we do have 3 space newbies on board today. I would imagine that they would be pretty excited to get out of their seats. They've been in these seats for a while. The crew ingressed hours ago, and if I would imagine that the 3 folks and even the veteran, everybody would be excited to get out and be able to float around a little bit for the first time on this Crew-5 mission.
Yes, absolutely. And you do see the crew working through some procedures there on the touchpads that they do have in front of them. They'll continue to have those available for them throughout their flight uphill. Again, this is going to be about a 29-hour launch to docking for Crew-5.
It seems as though that 0G indicator may have floated out of view, perhaps up above the crew displays. We can see that the visors are up.
Dragon, SpaceX, environments are looking good for suit doffing. For today, we can leave the camera configured for a little while longer, but at this time, you are go for 4.012 and 4.300. As a reminder, please stow the suits with the visors closed. I'll copy.
Okay, Dragon copies. We are go for 4.012 and 4.300. We're going to keep the cameras configured, and when we stow the suits, we'll do it with the visors closed.
Good readback. At this time, you're also go to tell the world a little bit about that stowaway we saw shortly after second engine cutoff.
So we're standing by from a few words, standing by for a few words from the crew about that zero-G indicator. And there it is.
Expected launch. Dragon back in the ground. We missed the last part of your transmission.
And no worries, repeating my last on there. I was going to have you all talk a little bit about your zero-G indicator, but we can hold that off for the next ground station pass here for Dubai. At this time, what I'll do is I'll take the cameras external for suit doffing, and then you let me know when they're allowed to come back on board.
Okay, Dragon copies. So we'll let you know when you come back on with the cameras, and we're excited to talk about our stowaway here.
Okay, Dragon copies and working.
And it does sound like we are in a brief expected loss of signal with the crew. This does happen from time to time when we're in between our satellites, but we will have views and communication back with them here shortly, and we're looking forward to hearing their words on their stowaway and what that special meaning is for the crew. So with Crew-5 now successfully on orbit, let's head over to our counterparts at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Daryl, it was spectacular to watch this launch from here in Hawthorne, but tell me, what was it like to see it on the ground?
It was amazing. First of all, we got an idyllic day right here on the Space Coast. I mean, the temperatures are like, mid 70s. There's a cool breeze. Phenomenal launch. Bob, I want to get your thoughts. You've flown, you've watched. This was pretty perfect.
No, this was just outstanding. It was picturesque, with the blue sky, the blue background, a beautiful day here in Florida. The only thing I wish was that I was there with them, because that is the one place that is better to watch a launch from than right here at the Kennedy Space Center is on board the rocket ship.
I got to believe that. And though we weren't on board, we did get to watch the views as we were going up and saw them land the booster, which, by the way, that booster also going to be SpaceX's and NASA's Crew-6 booster. So more the reuse, NASA taking advantage of that as well.
Absolutely. Every chance that we get to reuse a capsule or reuse a booster kind of drives down costs and increases the opportunity for more folks to fly in space.
Now I'm headed out to take a swim, right? I mean, this is just perfect out here. Bob, thank you for your thoughts. And now we're going to move on. We've got an interview here with Robin Gaytons, the director of the International Space Station, who also joins us here. And you got to experience the launch from right here outside the press site. And I want to ask you, how did you enjoy it?
Well, it's always exciting to see launch to the International Space Station. I've seen many, but especially to see a new international crew headed to the International Space Station was very exciting. And of course, you nailed it. Beautiful day. Really glad we got this one off today.
Absolutely, and they'll make that 29-hour transit to the space station. You're the director of the International Space Station, so I want to ask you, I heard there's a book coming out there have been books before about the International Space Station, but a new one's coming out. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's called Our Benefits to Humanity. It is a publication we have put out before, and we actually released it in July, so it's out. It's both in print format as well as online, so people can just search on Benefits for Humanity, International Space Station, and find that book. And it highlights all of the wonderful research that's going on the space station. This crew will be doing over 200 experiments during their time on the International Space Station, ranging from medical kinds of research that will help treat diseases and produce new drugs here on Earth, regenerative medicine. One day we might even print organs for transplant on Earth. We have Earth science going on Space Station, a number of climate instruments to help us understand Earth's climate. Really exciting results. This is truly what we call the decade of results on the International Space Station, where we're building on past lessons and capabilities to just compound the results that we're able to get out of the space station.
And 235 investigations, 76 new ones, and you mentioned the decade. 2 decades, more than 2 decades, the International Space Station has been operating. You mentioned some of the science that they're going to be doing. Now I'm wondering if you have a favorite that you've kind of identified, like, oh, I can't wait to find out the results of that.
Well, I've been tracking a lot of them. I'm really excited about some of the medical things. We're flying again a payload by a company called Lambda Vision, and they're producing retinal implants that could be used to help patients with ocular degeneration. So that's really exciting. I'm excited about what we're learning, with respect to the climate. We got brand new climate instruments up on board. We've got companies learning how to make better products through their research on through the ISS National Lab and their work on the space station. So I'm also excited about plant research going on Space Station. I think that's not only important for future exploration missions, but also to help us grow plants in harsh environments, small spaces here on Earth.
And also NASA, while doing all of that, is continuing to work towards its ultimate goal of getting to the moon, going back to the moon and sustaining our presence there. A lot of technology at the station that works towards that end. We want to actually pause though for 1 second, because we understand that one of the astronauts, Josh Cassada, has a statement that he is going to make. It is relatively about his zero-G indicator, which if you saw in the coverage, it was I don't know if it was a baby Einstein, Bob, but it was a little Einstein.
It definitely looked like a small Einstein, but we'll listen to Josh and hear exactly the details.
Let's listen in. Again, waiting for astronaut Josh Cassada with a special message.
And Dragon, cameras are internal.
SpaceX. Dragon copies. We are internal with the waistbands off and stand by for the cabin mic check.
You can see Koichi Wakata is out of his seat.
Yeah, this
SpaceX Dragon from the cabin mic comm check.
And Koichi, I've got you 5x5. How me?
Mike, we have you loud and clear also.
Great news, and we're also getting some great views inside the capsule here, so if you all want to get a chance to talk about your indicator, we'd all love to hear some.
Absolutely, Mike. So, a couple years after he come up with his groundbreaking theory of special relativity, Albert Einstein, in his mind, still had a couple loose ends to tie up. While he was sitting in the patent office, because he wasn't famous yet, definitely should have been, he had what his happiest thought of his entire life. That thought was, person in free fall doesn't feel their own weight. That thought, along with some others that he built upon, led to general relativity and our understanding of gravitation and curvature of space-time. We're experiencing Einstein's happiest thought continuously, like the International Space Station has been doing for over 20 years. On Crew-5, call this little guy our free fall indicator. We're here to tell you there's plenty of gravity up here. In fact, that's what's keeping us in orbit right now and preventing this trip on a Crew Dragon from being a one-way trip. A little bit like life. We live in the same world, we live in the same universe. Sometimes we experience it in a very different way from our neighbors. We can all keep that in mind. Hopefully we can all continue to do absolutely amazing things, do it together.
Well, that was excellent, Josh. We appreciate you all taking the chance to share with us some of those special words and some of the meaning to you all.
I tell you, my crewmates are just happy that we didn't break out a dry erase board and get into more details.
We'll chat lensing later.
Absolutely.
A message from
at this time,
astronaut Josh Cassada, the pilot of Crew-5, and his fellow astronauts and cosmonaut, floating in space high above the Earth as they head to the International Space Station with a special message about Albert Einstein, who is represented there floating around space as the zero-G indicator, but then also a nod to his theory of relativity. E equals MC squared, I believe, Bob.
Well, there are a lot of great things that Einstein was responsible for, and I would just say that maybe there are 5 folks experiencing his happiest thought on board the Dragon capsule just right now.
Absolutely, and NASA is looking to return humans to the surface of the moon, and this is part of it, going to the International Space Station. We mentioned some of the efforts in going up there, and of course the science that's going to be done by Crew-5. We're looking forward to that as well. Some final thoughts, Bob, about the day today.
Well, it was just a wonderful day, a chance for me to relive the launch experience with the Falcon 9 and the Dragon capsule, and I'm just super excited for the Crew-5 and little Einstein on board and in free fall right now.
A very special moment indeed. Before we wrap up, I want to send it over to Megan Cruz, who is with Deputy Administrator and former Space Shuttle astronaut Pam Melroy.
I am Pam, and I have just been chatting about how wonderful of a day this was for a launch.
Oh, it's a gorgeous day here at the historic Kennedy Space Center. For me to see the next generation of launch vehicles launching to the space station was thrilling.
And also the next generation of young explorers. You know, you and I were talking about a young boy here, guys, that bought a space suit, an astronaut suit from downstairs at our store and was wearing it around and running around. How cute was that to see him so excited?
Well, I found it pretty cute to see the 3 rookies who were on the flight, as well as my very dear personal friend Koichi Wakata, who I flew with in 2000 to the space station. So I'm inspired by both the young and the experienced.
And speak to me about that like you said, you've flown on the space shuttle 3 times. Talk to me about that ascent, how it must feel as they're going up through the atmosphere.
It's absolutely a remarkable experience, and I found myself thinking as I was looking at the schedule for this rocket, how physics drives so much of what we do. So it's very similar in the timing of everything, but the space shuttle was a little bit of a wild ride, I have to say. It had a lot of vibration, particularly the first 2 minutes. But you know, it's a very different experience when you're here on the ground. It always brings tears to my eyes. I pray for the crew. When you're inside the vehicle, you're having a blast.
So I'm glad to hear that they were having a blast. Talk to me about why these commercial crew missions are so important.
Well, they're really important to us for a lot of different reasons. The whole value that NASA brings to the American people, and in fact to humanity, is around science, a strong science and technology posture for the country, and inspiration. And we see that all wrapped up in Commercial Crew, because we see the ability to do more science on orbit because we can carry more crew members. We see the advancements that have been made through NASA investments in Commercial Crew and commercial cargo that are lifting our entire space industry. And of course, there's nothing better than seeing an astronaut fly to space for inspiration.
Sure. And what's next for NASA? You know, right behind us, we have the vehicle assembly building. Inside is NASA's Artemis 1 rocket. Are you excited for that?
Oh, I'm very excited. I'll tell you, it's a big deal when a new rocket flies for the first time. And we have learned a lot. We have a lot to learn, just like I was a test pilot. So when we flew airplanes, we never actually launched the first try. Usually we just taxied down the runway. So we've taken her out to the runway a couple of times now, and we've learned a lot. And I cannot wait to see the most powerful rocket in the world launch going to the moon.
Yeah, we're doing a lot of great stuff here, and we're so happy to bring viewers on the ride with us, right?
You bet. That's the whole idea. NASA shares and inspires.
Perfect. Pam, thank you so much. I appreciate you being here. Guys, we're going to send it back to you for the last time today.
Thank you very much, Megan. Great job out there. Appreciate it. And Nicole, Josh, and Koichi and Anna are now on course to arrive at the International Space Station around 4:57 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow. And of course, NASA TV will stay on the air for continuous live coverage along Crew-5's entire ride to station. Meanwhile, SpaceX's YouTube channel will join live coverage starting at roughly 2 hours prior to docking. And though our coverage here at Kennedy is coming to a close, we will turn it over to the team in Houston to take us through the next phases of the Crew-5 mission all the way through the arrival at the International Space Station. For those of you watching online on NASA's YouTube, make sure you take a look at the description below. You'll see the video link there, and you'll find that for Crew-5 Coast Phase. Live coverage will continue at that link shortly. You can see it at the bottom of your screen. Pull that up for you. If you're watching on NASA TV, you won't notice a thing, and coverage will continue. So a post-launch news conference is scheduled for 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time on NASA TV, and you can find mission updates on Twitter at NASA, at SpaceX, and on the web at nasa.gov, including timing on any potential live tours of Dragon Endurance during the trip to station. Now, before we sign off from Kennedy, I want to thank my partner and co-host, Bob Behnken, for being on the launch broadcast, sharing your incredible insight and experiences. Bob, I really enjoyed listening to you today. Thank you so much. To you and to Megan, your wife, who helped us with Crew-4. We look forward to hearing more from your family, as well as maybe seeing Theo on a future launch broadcast.
Well, thank you, Daryl. I very much appreciate that. And of course, thank you to my wife and my son and our dog Shadow for joining us for a short period of time during today's broadcast. And again, I just want to echo Deputy Administrator Pam Mulroy's words with it's been an exciting year. The Crew-5 folks are just getting started on their excitement for the year, if you will, on their way to the space station right now. But we've got an Artemis 1 rocket over there, the SLS, in the vehicle assembly building. Looking forward to seeing that back out on the pad and getting her launched later this year.
Coming to a launch pad soon, mid-November, we all hope, and we're looking forward to that as well immensely. Huge thanks to all of our guests for joining us today, and thank you to all of you for watching. Here now are the highlights from the journey we took today, and just a reminder from here at the Kennedy Space Center to keep looking up. They're getting suited up inside that historic suit-up room, everything going smoothly. And there they are, the astronauts of Crew-5 taking their first steps outside.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition, engines full power, and liftoff. Go Crew-5. propulsion is nominal.
Vehicle is pitching downrange. Stage 1 propulsion.
Sequence start. 6, 5, 4.
I feel the liftoff. The clock has started.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11.
Godspeed, John Glenn.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. Rocket Tranquility. We copy you on the ground.
New possibilities are opening up for scientific cooperation between countries.
Space as Discovery clears the tower.
Discovery, go and throttle up.
Thanks, Karen, and to everybody in the shuttle program. The crew is go for launch. We have followed in their footsteps to get us where we are today.
Welcome to Mission Control Houston. I'm NASA Shaniqua Vereen, and we are live in the International Space Station Flight Control Room. Just about 50 minutes ago, we had a successful launch of NASA's SpaceX Crew-5 mission to the International Space Station from the Kennedy Space Center at Launch Complex 39A in Cape Canaveral, Florida. Crew-5 will have about a 29-hour flight to the space station. Crew-5 lead flight director Greg Whitney, who led integrated NASA and SpaceX operations teams and planning for this mission, is currently leading teams here in Mission Control and will be back later tomorrow for Dragon's approach and docking. Crew-5 astronauts consist of NASA astronaut and Dragon commander Nicole Mann, NASA astronaut and Dragon pilot Josh Cassada, mission specialist JAXA astronaut Koichi Wakata, and Russian cosmonaut Anna Kikina. Expedition 68 is currently aboard the International Space Station, including the Crew-4 astronauts, NASA's Kjell Lindgren, Bob Hines, Jessica Watkins, and the current station commander and European Space Agency astronaut Samantha Cristoforetti. They arrived back in April of 2022 and are set to come home next week. Also aboard the station is NASA astronaut Frank Rubio and Roscosmos cosmonauts Sergei Prokopyev and Dmitry Patelin of Roscosmos, who recently arrived to the space station aboard a Soyuz spacecraft. With the addition of Crew-5, we'll have 11 people aboard the station for a short period of time. Currently attached are 4 spacecrafts, including the SpaceX Crew Dragon Freedom, which brought up the Crew-4 astronauts, a Russian Soyuz MS-22 cruise ship, and Progress 80 and 81 resupply ships. Crew-5 is not the only thing headed to station. That's right, we have critical science and investigations headed up with the crew. Here are some details on the science the crew will work on their mission. Astronauts experience changes in their cardiovascular, respiratory, and musculoskeletal systems during spaceflight. These changes could pose a challenge on future long-duration missions, particularly those where crews encounter different levels of gravity and have minimal direct medical support. CardioBreath, a Canadian Space Agency investigation flying with the crew, examines deconditioning of the cardiorespiratory system and how it affects the control of blood pressure. Crew members will wear a custom-fitted biomonitor shirt that tracks heart rate, blood pressure, breathing rate, and activity level before, during, and after exercise. Results are then compared to measurements taken before and after the astronauts' missions. These findings could provide insight into how blood pressure control adapts and help researchers develop ways to keep astronauts healthier in space.
Dragon, burn complete, nominal burn. Next burn is the phase burn per your displays in approximately 20 hours.
Got these. We see that burn coming up in 20 hours.
Try to contain your excitement just for a little while longer. And when able, we do have some words for Josh to plan or to talk through some of the actions we wanted to take on his suit. So no hurry on that one, but just when ready, report when you're ready to copy.
Good, Mike. We're ready to copy.
Okay, Josh, I've got 4 items here that we're looking for your eyes on. So I'll kind of go through the first 2 first, and then the second 2, because the first 2 are a little bit connected, and then the last 2 will be pretty straightforward. But first item that I have is that what we'd like you to do is remove the middle seat foam of your seat, and then verify that the seat side umbilical connection is secure by pressing firmly downwards directly above both latches. That's 1 firm push above each latch and let us know if you hear any clicks or tactile feedback. How copy?
Hey, Mike, I copy that step one is going to be to take out the middle foam of my seat and make sure that that umbilical is connected. I'll be doing that by pushing above the latches and see if I can even hear them click into place.
That's correct, and that's going to be, for the above, it's going to be kind of directly into the seat itself. Okay, after that, the second action that we have is that we're requesting that you then lightly pull the umbilical in the opposite direction of which way you'd be pushing in step one. The goal here is to see if pulling away is causing the latches to become loose. How copy?
Okay, copy. After step one, I will pull away from the connection and see if that makes the latches come loose.
Yep, and just for full clarification there, we're looking for just a light pull there, nothing too forceful. Okay, and we just finished up the handover over there, but if you're ready for item number 3, I'm ready to report.
Copy on items 3 and 4.
Okay, item number 3 is to inspect for any FOD around the inflatable visor seal, taking extra care around that polycarbonate portion of the visor.
Dragon copies. Step 3 will be inspecting that inflatable visor seal, and I'll watch out for that polycarbonate.
Good readback, and then the last is to take one inspection of the trapdoor on the suit side QD and just look for any potential FOD on that side of the suit. How copy?
And the copy on step 4, I will go ahead and check the trapdoor on the QD side and just see if there's any FOD in there on my suit.
Good readback.
Okay, Dragon copies all 4 of those steps. We'll put those into work. We'll report back in 7 minutes and let you know how they went. And then can we get big picture words on the plan after that? Are we going to be doing another suit leak check here before the end of the workday, which we're happy to do, or do you want to push that off?
Great question. Overall, we are not recommending another leak check at this time. We're just getting a little bit more insight into the current status, knowing that we'll have the leak check for approach is going to be our first time stepping back into any kind of suited activities here. That may change if we discover something on here, but right now we're not planning on having you all re-perform a leak check today.
Copy. We'll knock out these 4, and we're not planning on another leak check actually until we start kicking off the rendezvous, if that's correct.
That's a good readback.
Thanks a lot, Mike. We appreciate it.
If you're just joining us, we're doing live coverage of the NASA SpaceX Crew-5 mission. Their launch to the International Space Station was successful this morning around 11 a.m. CT, 12 noon Eastern Time. Currently on your screen is Hawthorne Mission Control, MCCX on your left, and International Space Station Flight Control Room here at Mission Control Houston on the right, where teams are still in contact with the crew. You just heard the Corps and SpaceX's Mission Control speaking to Josh Cassada as they went over a suit leak check, just checking preemptively because the crew will be off duty and they will not be checking again until suits are put back on upon rendezvous and approach for docking tomorrow. You'll hear calls throughout today's coverage from Dragon to Ground to the crew as they come up from the Corps in MCCX.
And Dragon, no response required. Just a reminder that the off-duty period is starting in approximately 30 minutes. You'll be confirming your sleep schedule with flight surgeons in an upcoming PMC.
And you just heard the Corps to the crew reminding them that they are off duty, and that's 12:30 Central Time, 1:30 Eastern Time. So just about 29 minutes from now, the crew will be off duty, and we may not hear calls any longer to the crew, but we will return and be on duty about 2.5 hours before docking, currently scheduled for 4:57 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow. Speaking of docking, there's been a lot of preparations that have taken place to prepare the orbiting lab for Crew-5's arrival. In the days leading up to docking, the crew moved stowage around to make sure the docking hatchways were clear and supplies were ready for Crew-5. The afternoon of docking, the station crew will set up laptops that will allow them to monitor Dragon's approach. These tools will be monitored and mirrored down to the ground for flight controllers to see as well. NASA astronaut Kjell Lindgren will be primed for the lead for monitoring Dragon's approach, while he'll be backed by NASA's Bob Hines. Other prep will continue before the crew arrives to the station, which includes cleaning Node 2 or the Harmony module in preparation for Crew-5's arrival, and installing crew alternate sleep accommodations or CASAs to provide additional crew quarters on board. With 11 people and only 7 permanent crew quarters on the International Space Station, some of the crew will also sleep inside their Dragon spacecrafts. One crew member will sleep inside a Freedom while another will sleep inside Endurance once it's docked. with the remaining staking out temporary campout locations, likely in the station's Kibo module or the U.S. airlock. As approach and docking continues, the crew has about a 29-hour approach and rendezvous phase for the crew to arrive at the International Space Station. Flight controllers here on the ground and Mission Control Houston will also begin further preparations. Around 3 hours prior to docking, flight controllers will begin to feather the ISS solar arrays. This is a multi-step process that is spaced out until Dragon is on the docking axis. Both solar alpha rotary joints will be parked and locked. 4 beta gimbal assemblies, or BGAs, will be parked, with 2 of those also being latched. The other 4 BGAs will continue to track the sun, continuing to provide power to the International Space Station. This configuration is designed to protect the arrays from thruster trails or plumes as Dragon approaches. Around 1.5 hours to docking, we will hand over station attitude control from U.S. gyroscopes to Russian thrusters. This is so station can hold finer attitude control while Dragon approaches. Once soft dock is complete, the docking ring retraction complete, we will hand over attitude control back to the U.S. gyroscopes so that thrusters are not firing.
SpaceX for PMC.
Go ahead. SpaceX Dragon, we would like to get out the suit now, so for PMC, could you wait for 10 minutes?
Not a problem. We have a lot of window for the PMC. Just let us know when you'd like to take it.
Okay, yeah, we'll get back with you. Thank you.
And that was a call from the Corps to the crew. Koichi Wakata responded. The SpaceX Dragon crew would like to doff their suits before having a PMC or a private medical conference. This is standard procedure for any approach and docking in a spacecraft, and the crew is doing fine. They will let the Corps know when they are ready for those PMCs. If you're just joining us, you're watching live coverage of NASA's SpaceX Crew-5 mission to the International Space Station. The SpaceX Dragon spacecraft carrying NASA astronauts Nicole Mann, Dragon Commander Josh Cassada, Dragon pilot and mission specialist JAXA astronaut Koichi Wakata, and Roscosmos cosmonaut Anna Kikina are on their way to the International Space Station, and they have successfully reached orbit. They're in for about a 29-hour rendezvous until they approach and dock to the International Space Station. We're expecting docking to commence around 4:57 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow. So far as the crew has reached orbit, they have had a successful nose cone deploy, a successful 11-minute phase burn, and are looking for the next burn to be 20 hours from now, and that's a phase adjust burn. Again, that will happen a couple hours before approach and docking to the International Space Station. You won't see any cabin views for now. You currently have views of MCCX, that's the SpaceX Mission Control Room in Hawthorne, California on the left, and you see the International Space Station Flight Control Room or Mission Control Houston on your right. The crews are currently doffing their spacesuits or taking off their spacesuits, and they will then have a private medical conference with flight surgeons here on the ground. The crew will go into an off-duty status around 12:30 Central Time, 1:30 Eastern Time, which means we won't hear or see them until we're in a closer approach and docking maneuver. You're looking live at Mission Control Houston, the International Space Station Flight Control Room, where we just had a successful launch at 11 a.m. Central Time of NASA SpaceX Crew-5 mission. The crew successfully launched and are now in orbit, heading towards the International Space Station. Dragon had a successful separation and nose cone deploy. It now begins what's called an activation and rendezvous phase of the mission. During this phase, Dragon is configured for an on-orbit operations. The phase begins after separation from Falcon 9 and ends with the completion of the final co-elliptic burn. The initial orbit that was met today was 190 kilometers by 210 kilometers, with those values representing the perigee and apogee of the orbit, or the lowest and highest point over the Earth. That means that the orbit isn't a perfect circle, but more like a slight ellipse. Over the course of the next 28.5 hours or so, Dragon will execute a series of burns, the next not being for 20 hours post that phase burn that they had after coming into orbit. But these burns will then gradually raise its orbit to align more closely with the station. There are 5 major burns, or firings, of those Draco thrusters on Dragon that will bring the spacecraft close to station before they begin a final approach maneuver. The first major burn, which was the phase burn, is performed at the first apogee. We had that. It was successful, had a nominal burn of 11 minutes, and that raised Dragon's perigee and put Dragon into a higher altitude. The next burn, which is based on the orbital data, is going to be the boost burn, which raises Dragon's orbit until its orbit reaches an altitude just 10 kilometers lower than the space station. Followed soon after by the close co-elliptic burn to place Dragon on an orbit.
SpaceX Dragon on Dragon to ground for suit 3 suit.
Go ahead, Josh. I'm ready to copy.
Okay, Mike, I'm going to go in reverse direction here if you don't mind. Check the QD connection on the outside of the suit, and that trapdoor was clear of any FOD. Also inspected the visor seal. I did find no damage to the seal at all, but I did find a hair that was on the top of the seal. All I know is it wasn't Koichi's, but I'm pretty sure that wasn't the problem. And then moving up to the QD connection there on the seat. Step 2, when I pulled away, it did not cause the latches to disconnect. But I know you're waiting for it. Number 1, that actually worked. Pushed on the connector and found that the bottom latch clicked into place. So when I did that very first step, I think I found the source of our problem.
Okay, copy that. So just running through the reverse list here, the QD on the suit side was clear of FOD. The visor seal did not have any damage, but you did find a hair. Koichi has been exonerated. The QD on the seat you pulled away and no latches disconnected. And then when you did the QD push, the bottom latch closer to the seat bottom did click into place.
You got it, Mike. That makes me feel pretty good. How do you feel about it?
We're feeling pretty good about it as well. We'll talk about that here more on the ground and see if there's any further actions or troubleshooting we want to take. But for now, we're good to call it for troubleshooting there. So thank you for your effort and investigation.
No problem at all. We really appreciate you guys putting your heads together and coming up with a plan to figure out what might have happened. And when you guys are ready, we're ready for that initial PMC.
Okay, copy that. Standby 1. We'll work the PMC and get that along shortly.
And you just heard NASA astronaut Josh Cassada talking to the SpaceX core, Michael Blasco, about a suit leak check that happened a little earlier on, checking the umbilical for FOD, or that foreign object debris. Josh did confirm that there was a loose latch and it has now been rectified. The crew is now going to talk to a flight surgeon here on the ground for a private medical conference. You will not hear this conference. It is private, and the crew, this is standard procedure for the crew. You're seeing live inside Mission Control at SpaceX, Hawthorne, California.
Hello, and welcome to NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida, where we just watched a beautiful Crew-5 launch on the most beautiful Florida afternoon. I'm Megan Cruz with NASA Communications, and you are watching the post-launch news conference for today's mission. So let's jump right into it. We have first Kathy Leaders, Associate Administrator, Space Operations Mission Directorate here at NASA headquarters. Steve Stitch, Manager, Commercial Crew Program, NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston. Joel Montalbano, Manager, International Space Station Program at NASA Johnson. Also Sarah Walker, Director, Dragon Mission Management, SpaceX. Hiroshi Sasaki, Vice President and Director General, JAXA's Human Spaceflight Technology Directorate. And Sergei Krikalev, Executive Director, Human Spaceflight Programs, Roscosmos. Thank you all for being here. Now we're going to start with some opening remarks from each of them who I just introduced, and then we'll take questions from reporters. So Kathy, go ahead.
Oh, wow, what a beautiful launch. You know, it was nice to not be fighting the weather as we were heading into the count. And so actually we were all sitting there and things were looking really smooth, and I don't even think we had the weather up in Fire Room 4. So that was really enjoyable. But I think it was wonderful to see just how excited Nicole and Josh and Anna and our seasoned veteran Koichi were as they got on orbit. I mean, just once again experiencing that being in space. And for us, it's always great to see that launch go through and see the spacecraft operating safely. Finally, you know, these are real human endeavors, and there's a team here that had to recover from the hurricane last week, get the Kennedy Space Center back open, get things cleaned up, get us ready to go, and the fact that we're here today is a testimony to all that work that team did. So I would really like to thank all the folks that worked so hard, and the SpaceX and NASA team that just carefully got us prepared for today. And now I'll turn it over to Steve Stitch.
Yeah, thanks, Kathy. It's a pleasure to be here today. And as Kathy said, I guess I'm super excited with the launch today. The weather couldn't have been better here at the Kennedy Space Center. We didn't have to look at any weather on a monitor. We could just look out the window and see a beautiful blue sky. And really, it was that way along the ground track as well. You know, we talked about the abort winds at the staging location, and those were within limits today. So at our weather briefing at 6 hours prior to launch, we decided to go press into the countdown. What a great decision that was. The team did a phenomenal job working through the issues out of the launch readiness review. SpaceX recovered the drone ship to just read the instruction. That was ready. You saw the booster land perfectly on that. We replaced an actuator on engine 3, and that worked out great. Check that out. And then we got the fire suppression, a small leak fixed, and then we're ready to go fly. The vehicle is doing great on orbit. Dragon is doing well. Nose cone was open. Thrusters are doing great. All the systems are working fine. You could see Nicole and Josh and Anna and Koichi. They were all smiles and happy to be in space. They were so excited today. It's great to see them on orbit. And now we're going to focus the next 29 hours from launch to get them docked. And that docking time is 4:57 p.m. tomorrow afternoon Eastern. And so we'll really turn our attention to that phase of the flight. We're excited about the launch. We're excited Dragon's doing well, but we'll focus on docking and getting them safely docked to the space station. And now I'll turn it over to the Space Station Program Manager, Joel Montalbano.
Hey, thank you, Steve, and thank you guys for being here today, and for those who are dialing in. Just an outstanding launch, as you've already heard, and it is awesome to have 4 new space flyers on their way to the International Space Station. These guys, as Steve said, will dock just before 5 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. A hatch opening will be about 90 minutes later. It's just a little past 90 minutes for a hatch opening. They'll stay docked about 150 days. In 150 days, we'll have them doing human research experiments. We'll have them doing technology development. That's going to help us go past low Earth orbit and do further exploration, as well as they'll do some of our commercialization activities. As far as the handover between Crew-4 and Crew-5, it'll be about 5 days. Once the vehicle gets docked, we'll start working the details with the Commercial Crew Program and SpaceX on the actual weather. But we have a good handful of days of docked ops with the team. And with that, let me congratulate and thank our international partners, the Commercial Crew Program, and the SpaceX team. Just a fantastic day to be in human spaceflight. Over to you, Sarah.
Thanks, Joel. I have very similar things to say as my colleagues and friends up here today, so maybe I'll keep it short. But yeah, it was an incredible day to launch Dragon and Crew-5 to the space station. We're so excited to see Nicole, Josh, Koichi, and Anna start their mission on board the orbiting laboratory. Someone reminded me as I was walking in here today that this mission actually marks 30 humans that SpaceX has sent to space. My life flashed before me kind of on hyperdrive, right? It feels like yesterday that Bob and Doug were driving up to the pad. That was May 2020, the first humans that SpaceX had the privilege of launching, and here we are, the 30 humans in space. Today, Falcon 9 launched Dragon into a nominal insertion orbit. That was about an hour and a half ago. And then that first stage booster, as Steve said, returned to just read the instructions, our drone ship, which was stationed out in the Atlantic Ocean. It was actually happened to be a first flight booster, so it will be returning to shore soon for many more flights ahead, hopefully in the near future. Meanwhile, on orbit, Dragon has completed its initial on-orbit checkouts, and soon it will start performing a series of burns that will help it catch up with the International Space Station for docking tomorrow. It's about a 29-hour flight. Once safely docked, my team's focus is going to be fully on bringing the Crew-4 crew home safely to their friends and family in about a week's time after that. So we'll continue to watch the weather. The vehicle that is on board supporting the Crew-4 mission is healthy, and we'll watch for those conditions to safely bring the crew home and safe for our recovery teams as well. So thanks to the 45th Space Delta for enabling this launch today. Thank you especially to NASA and JAXA and Roscosmos for collaborating on this. How incredible, actually, that I have 3 nation space agencies here at the table representing this mission. A huge partnership and collaboration. So thank you for your partnership. Sasaki-san, would you like to give some words?
Thank you. Introduction. I'm Hiro Sasaki, Vice President of JAXA, in charge of the human space flight and space exploration. This is the 3rd time to see Crew Dragon launch, but every time it's very beautiful.
Thank you.
And on behalf of JAXA, I'd like to express my sincere thanks to every single colleague who has been devoted to the launch while facing the tough time under the hurricanes. But the mission is still going on, but I'd like to congratulate all of you on the successful launch. And I'm sure that Crew-5 mission is a symbol of a strong international partnership, and its importance is recognized, especially in the tough time we are facing now. I do believe that the international partnership has been and will continue to be a key to bring us a variety of benefits unavailable without the ISS. This is the 5th flight for Japanese astronaut Koichi Wakata. He has rich experience in space, and I hope he transfers his experience to his colleague astronaut and create fruitful outcomes in the ISS with them, which are indispensable to our life on Earth and future exploration. I'm confident that Japan will continue to take a significant role in the human endeavor by making the best use of our expertise and open new era with international partners. Once again, congratulations on the successful launch. I'd like to pass Sergei Grigoriev, Russian colleague.
Thank you very much. It's difficult to add something to what was already said. I just want to say that we start a new phase of our cooperation, start to do this exchange flight, because just a couple of weeks ago, American crew member went on Russian Soyuz spacecraft on the station, and now Russian cosmonaut Anna Kikina is member of this crew, and they are going to be on the station very soon and join together and keep working together. But starting that we start new phase, I want to mention that we just continue what was started many years ago in 1975 when Apollo-Soyuz crew worked together, and now we continue our cooperation. And also, I want to say that, of course, we celebrate a successful launch, but for the crew, it's just beginning of the mission. They need to dock tomorrow, and then they have many days of very interesting phase of their flight, new experiments, and I hope that all this flight would be successful. I would like to wish for the crew successful flight and good mission.
Thank you, everyone, for those opening remarks. We'll get into the questions now. We have some reporters here in the room, but also we have some reporters over the phone. If you are on the phone and want to get into the question queue, don't forget to hit *1. And to get to as many of you guys as possible, please ask one question. Let us know who you'd like to answer that question, and then we'll try to go around to see if anybody else has some other questions. So I saw the first hand over here. Oh, right over here, actually, right behind you.
She's like me.
Trying to be fair.
Well, good afternoon. I'm Tom Costello with NBC News. Again, congratulations on yet another great launch. To Sergei from the Russian Space Agency, I know you addressed this a few days ago, but in this setting, now that we have a television camera, how committed is Russia to this international cooperation, to the space station, and how long will you be a partner with the United States, with Japan, with Canada, with the international partners in this program?
This is two questions in your question. Basically, for how long, it depends on many things, and technical things would be probably primary. But talking about cooperation, I think we start to cooperate, as I said, many years ago, more than 40 years ago, and we will continue our cooperation as long as I can imagine.
Okay, and then right here. Yes, right here.
I am Jim Siegel. I'm with NASATech.net. Congratulations to all of you and your teams for a great launch here today. I believe I have a question for Sarah. I believe that Crew-4 had a investigation concerning artificial retinas. And I'm interested in whether that investigation is going to come back with Crew-4, or if it's going to stay on the space station for additional work. Thank you.
Yeah, let me take a run at that. That is true. We did do the retina experiment, and the cool thing about that is the results of that are going to help restore sight. The goal is that you take that information you use, and then you make a step closer to restoring sight for people that have lost it. I believe we returned some of that work on a cargo spacecraft. I thought SpaceX 25 returned some of that, but let me go verify that, and we'll close the loop with you on that.
Okay, thank you.
I saw Marcia's hand here on the first row.
Marcia Dunn, Associated Press for Sergei. How does it feel for you being back here launching cosmonauts again from Kennedy Space Center? You were the first, after all. And also for your staff in Moscow, has the war been a distraction for them? The longer it goes, do you worry about them being distracted or having their work impacted by what's going on around them? Thank you.
Crew, which is flying now in space, which just launched in space tomorrow, they have a pretty tight schedule. They have a lot of assignment, and they will do what they're supposed to do. They were trained for that. So I hope distraction from what is going on the ground would be minimum, because we are trying to focus on scientific tasks, on engineering tasks, and crew will do what they're supposed to do. As for me, as I said, I was very pleased to be here again. I remember being here a long time ago when we start previous phase of our cooperation, when we start to do our shuttle missions, and then Mir shuttle program, and then construction of International Space Station. So for me, I'm very glad to see all friends, all colleagues, and as I said, I hope we will cooperate together the way it was started in 1975.
I didn't mean the crew being distracted. I meant flight controllers. Your team in Moscow, are they being distracted by the ongoing war in Ukraine and what's going on?
They also do what they're supposed to do. They do their duty, and actually we have a team not only in Moscow but also in Houston. We have a group of Russians who is in Russian mission control. We have a group of Americans who is in a group of Americans in mission control in Moscow and a group of Russians in mission control in Houston. So this group is very focused on do what they're supposed to do.
Thank you. I saw a hand right there. Yeah, second row on this side. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Sergei Yamatov, Russian TASS News Agency. Well, first of all, congratulations everyone on today's launch. That was amazing. And I guess my question is for Steve, but maybe Joel or Katie will add something up. So I was curious about your take about the meaning of today's launch, first integrated crew launch on the U.S. soil. What does it mean for the future of Russia and U.S. Cooperation? And maybe do you have any plans to extend the agreement after 2024? Thank you.
I'll take the first part and then I'll let Joel talk about the agreement. But, you know, I was very excited today to have another international partner fly on our commercial crew vehicles. It was great to see Anna fly. It's great to see Sergei again here. I got to work with Sergei a long time ago in Shuttle Mir, so it was neat seeing that colleague. And we're excited about continuing to fly international partner astronauts. We take these missions very seriously. Each one is a little different. And, you know, I was sort of thinking and reflecting back, this is now our 6th crewed launch in just a little over 2.5 years, and each is different. But then when we go about the preparation, it's the same for every flight. I think an example of that preparation was today. I don't know if you were following when we were closing the hatch, but we take some closeout pictures of the hatch, the seals around the hatch, and the team at Hawthorne saw one human hair on that hatch seal and spotted it very quickly, said reopen the hatch and let's get that hair off and make sure it was good. So that's what our teams are doing on the NASA side here at Kennedy, at JSC in partnership with SpaceX. And so it's a great team effort. And we're excited to continue to fly more and more cosmonauts and Japanese astronauts and ESA and our U.S. astronauts on our program.
You know, from a cooperation standpoint, Sergei mentioned it a little earlier, you know, we've been cooperating with the Russian Space Agency since the Apollo-Soyuz. And the cool thing is General Stafford was at today's launch. He was in OSB-2 with us. And General Stafford has been, you know, he's leads the U.S. Review Commission that reviews the space station program on a regular basis, and he's been part of this process. So it's good to see that. As far as future work, I think everybody's well aware we signed an agreement with Roscosmos for 1 flight this year, 1 flight next year, and 1 flight in 24. That's for all SpaceX missions. Once Boeing gets up and running, our plan is to continue this cooperation on the Boeing missions. As we extend space station, get partner across-the-board agreement to extend past 24, we would also extend the agreement as our goal.
Thank you, Stitch and Joel. We're going to pause in the room real quick and take a caller on the phone. We have Chris Davenport with the Washington Post.
Hi, thank you, and congratulations on another beautiful launch. For Mr. Krikalev, follow-up from my question the other evening. In your recent comments, including today and in the comments by Mr. Borisov the other day, it seems like you're both making a real effort to smooth over relations with NASA and to demonstrate that you're very committed to the partnership. And I can't help but notice how this stands in stark contrast to the way Mr. Rogozin spoke of the partnership when he was head of Roscosmos. And I wonder if it's part of a concerted effort to ease the tensions that arose under him and to turn down the temperature a bit. Thanks very much.
Answer is yes.
Okay, so we have another caller on the phone. That's Joey Roulette from Reuters.
Hey, thank you. I had a question for Mr. Krikalev. Beyond this crew exchange agreement Russia has with NASA, do you guys at Roscosmos have any other agreements with other countries to fly non-Russian astronauts on Soyuz? And if not, are you guys in talks with those countries to lock in such an agreement? Thanks.
So it's to me? Yes. Okay. So we have kind of preset agreement, and nothing new is happening. We just recently flew UAE astronaut on Soyuz spacecraft, and we have tourists flying on the station. And we have special procedure every time we fly non-partner crew member on board Soyuz or American vehicle. We need to have full agreement from our international partners. So we did it for, as I said, for UAE. cosmonaut, and in the future we are planning to get new country, new programs, new agencies involved in space flights, and we just follow procedure that was set a while ago, and we just agree with each other for every next step.
Okay, back here in the room, Ken, I remember you raised your hand. First row right here in the blue.
Hi, thank you, Ken Kramer, for Space Up Close, and congratulations to all of you again on a beautiful launch, especially after the hurricane. So, Sergey, let me ask you a question. It's an honor to have you here. You're a hero to all the people that love space. Thanks for being here. I want to ask you about your perspective on the ISS, since you were the first one on the first mission. It's grown tremendously. Tell us about your expectations for the ISS. Has it met them? Has it exceeded them? What do you hope the ISS will lead to in the future?
Yeah, that's complicated question, and probably it's a big story behind of what was planned initially, what we are going to do in the future. And I can just remind you that when we just started this program, every module was built in order to fly for 15 years. We actually exceed this 15 years time mark long time ago, and station was extended a couple times. Right now we have agreement to fly together up to 2024. We already talk with our international partners, and we talk with our specialists in Russia, looking through technical capability of station to fly, and we understand that it makes sense to keep flying, because this excellent infrastructure that built in space can be used for humanity even more than we were initially planned. I think from very beginning we understood that station is very valuable to do science in space, on low Earth orbit, but also we understand that station is test bed for future flights, for flying more exciting mission to fly beyond low Earth orbit, and we can test a lot of equipment, a lot of procedures, a lot of methods of flying working on International Space Station. So that's what we are keeping now. We are going to keep it in future, and we will see how long station will be able to fly. And I think main limitation would be technical reason.
Thank you. And there's a question back here on this side of the room. Last row.
Hi, Aaron Cooper with CNN. I understand that Soyuz has been able to do some fast track docking attempts. Why hasn't that been tried with the Dragon missions? And is there thought in the future of doing kind of expedited or faster trips up to ISS?
Yeah, I mean, the missions are not very long, on the order of a day, plus or minus a few hours here and there. And it really just depends on the orbital mechanics of when what day we launch and where the space station is, and how many burns to catch up. But I think, Joel, maybe you could speak to this, but I think a day or less is a nice short mission to get up to space station. And
then when you constrain your launch to like hours, you do have to constrain the launch date. And so having the 1 day helps us maximize the opportunities. And
Steve. Yeah, we could have launched right anytime this week. We had a launch opportunity tomorrow, which was a little longer run to do 10 more hours, about 38.5 hours to dock. So what we have chosen to do is sort of optimize any time launch, I would say, and have as many opportunities as possible. Some of those are as short as about 16 hours to dock. Some of those are a little longer, like the one we're taking today. And so what we've chosen to do is sort of optimize any day launch just to handle the weather situation here at the Kennedy Space Center, our launch environment, which is lots of launches on the range, and then also abort weather, which we have some criteria up the coast. And so we've chosen to do that versus sort of optimize the Dragon to launch, in a couple orbits, which it could feasibly do that if we chose to do so.
And I believe I saw one last hand in the room. Yep, can we just have him in the front row?
Yeah, hi, John McGill with Wyandotte Cable. This question's for Sarah. We've been getting used to previously flown boosters. So how does a new booster differ in your preparation?
Yeah, there's not difference in the the checks that we do in preparing for the launch and certifying the booster. We have a production facility in Hawthorne in California, and we have a number of lanes of refurbishment capability here at the Cape. So there's different activities that we do, whether we're performing maintenance or we're building a new one, but this was more so just happenstance that due to the timing of this launch, this one was a new booster to come off the line, and we try to make sure that we have boosters ready to support our customers' needs.
And from a NASA perspective, we like getting the new boosters. I mean, every time SpaceX puts a new booster in the fleet, they continue to make, I would say, safety improvements to the boosters, better inspections of this booster in some areas than we've had in the past in terms of looking at the hardware. There's some robustness in the aft part of the vehicle around the engines to keep the plume from those engines from coming inside. There's many things. Each booster that we get, I think we might get a new booster again later on in Crew-6. So every one of those, we see improvements to it. So we like the reflown boosters, but again, getting a new booster for us, get some upgrades and some safety improvements, which we appreciate on the NASA perspective. So.
Okay.
I guess I would just highlight that the NASA certification process that tells us we are go for flight is the same across the board, right? So safety and reliability is the top priority with every single booster, and it's all held to the same standard when we say we're go for launch.
All right, when we have one other person on the phone, we have Joey Roulette again with Reuters.
Hey, thanks. I just had one follow-up for Sergey. How important is it for Russia to remain as an International Space Station partner? Would Russia be able to sustain its human spaceflight program if it were to pull out of the partnership in 2024? Or what would that look like? Thanks.
We are thinking about building new space station. We start preliminary design of it. There is no final decision yet, but we are going to keep flying International Space Station as long as our new infrastructure will build. We don't know yet how it's going to be built and what kind of modules we will have, but I'm sure that we will stay in international partnership when we fly ISS, and future station, future infrastructure is also going to be with international partnership.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. We got to all the questions, so I now invite Kathy for any final remarks.
So like I think Sergey mentioned, and Sergey, I think you got the brunt of the questions today, so thank you very much. Right now, we're just through one phase. So obviously great launch. We're very happy that the launch went so well, but now the team's really focused on getting the crew safely to the ISS. We once again are very grateful that our international partners are trusting us to be able to fly their crews. And we're also very grateful that SpaceX continues to be such a great partner for us and continue to fly our crews. And so looking forward to Nicole and Josh and Anna and Koichi safely reaching the International Space Station tomorrow. And I know Joel's got a whole list of things for them to do when they get on orbit. So keep watching, keep following along. Hopefully it'll be very calm and boring mission, and we'll get there. But also really, really, like I said at the beginning, want to thank all the teams. You all know what a tremendous endeavor this is, and it takes people all over the country, all over the world to get us to this point. And so I really, really want to thank the teams that have gotten us to this point. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for your interest in Crew-5.
Well, you heard Kathy. Keep watching, keep following along. So with that, coverage will continue on NASA TV through docking at the space station, which is expected tomorrow, Thursday, October 6th at 4:57 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll also stay on to cover the welcome ceremony, which, as Joel said, is about 90 minutes after that. So until then, just follow us along for any updates on our social media channels, and we're going to say goodbye with a beautiful replay of today's launch.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition, engines full power, and liftoff. Go Crew-5.
phenomenal.
If you're just joining us, welcome to Mission Control Houston. We are live in the International Space Station Flight Control Room just about 2 hours after having a successful launch of NASA's SpaceX Crew-5 mission to the International Space Station from the Kennedy Space Center at Launch Complex 39A in Cape Canaveral, Florida. Crew-5 has about a 29-hour flight to the space station. With 2 of those hours knocked off, the space station will continue chasing the International Space Station for just another 27 hours. We're expecting docking for the Crew-5 crew and Crew Dragon Endurance around 4:57 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow. SpaceX Dragon spacecraft carrying NASA astronauts Nicole Mann, the commander of Dragon, Josh Cassada, the pilot of Dragon, and mission specialist JAXA astronaut Koichi Wakata and Roscosmos cosmonaut Anna Kikina are on their way to the International Space Station. They have successfully reached orbit and have been chasing down the International Space Station for the past 2 hours.
Dragon SpaceX for suit drying.
Go ahead, Mike.
Hey, Nicole. We just had noticed that the suits have been on, or the suit fans have been on for over 20 minutes on there, so we just wanted to check in and make sure that things were still going okay. Obviously, you can keep going until they are dry, but in case you all forgot, we just wanted to let you know that the 20 minutes on our end had run up.
Okay, copy that. We'll give them another check and then get those fans off as soon as they're good.
SpaceX copies, much appreciated.
You just heard confirmation from Commander Nicole Mann to the core out in SpaceX's Mission Control in Hawthorne, California. The core, or the Crew Operations Resource Engineer, Michael Blasco, relayed to the crew that the time has elapsed on the drying of those suits that they doffed. You're currently seeing a live view in both MCCX, Mission Control for SpaceX on your left, and MCCH, Mission Control Houston, on your right. MCCX, based in Hawthorne, California, is where teams monitor Dragon, checking all of its systems to help make sure the crew has a safe journey. They also have positions or consoles, and the key 6 positions for monitoring the health of the vehicle and the crew. The mission director is responsible for mission success and is also in charge of the room, much like the flight director here in Mission Control Houston. The lead flight director for Crew-5 is Greg Whitney, who's currently on console and will be back tomorrow as well for docking of Crew Dragon. You see him here at the bottom of your screen. To his right is the capsule communicator. That's Leslie Ringo. She has the job to talk to the crew aboard the International Space Station. You heard me say core, or the Crew Operations Resource Engineer. That's based in Hawthorne, California. They are currently talking to the crew aboard Dragon. Mission Control Houston is staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Team members here are trained in a variety of disciplines and monitor all station systems. And again, that's the International Space Station systems that they monitor. These positions include Robo, which control the Canadarm2 for spacewalks. These positions also include Capcom and Flight Director, as we just spoke about. They also include ADCO, which controls the attitude or orientation of the space station. We also have a VVO, or a Visiting Vehicle Officer, who monitors and works with the external teams sending spacecraft to and from the space station. Tomorrow we'll see the VVO jump into action as Visiting Vehicle Crew-5's Crew Endurance spacecraft